The first thing that came through the moment this card hit the table was panic, not confusion, not curiosity. Panic, because this narcissistic masculine did not go looking into your energy because he wanted healing. He did not pay that psychic because he wanted truth. He went because he wanted confirmation that you were still attached. He wanted someone to tell him, yes, she still misses you. Yes, she is still watching. Yes, she is still waiting. Yes, you still have access. And then the reader saw something completely different. 2 of Cups, a mirror, a bond, a spiritual contract, but not the kind he expected. Because what I'm receiving from this card, Divine Feminine, is that when they looked into your energy, they did not find a woman collapsed in grief. They found a woman coming back into union with herself. And hear me clearly, that is what terrified him. He expected to see your heart reaching for him. Instead, they saw your heart returning to you. He expected to see emotional dependence. Instead, they saw emotional balance. He expected to see an open energetic doorway. Instead, they saw 2 cups filled evenly, guarded, protected, and no longer pouring into someone who kept leaving you empty. This is important because this person thought your love was the leash. He thought the connection itself would keep you spiritually tied to him no matter what he did. He believed that because the bond was strong, your boundaries would stay weak. But this card is showing the exact opposite. The connection may have been real. The emotion may have been real. The history may have been real. But your self-respect became stronger than the attachment. And that is the part he cannot process. Right now, he is replaying what the psychic told him. He is trying to twist it in his mind, trying to make it mean something smaller than it means. But he heard it. He heard that your energy is not chasing. He heard that your spirit is not begging. He heard that whatever power he once had over your emotions is breaking down. And Divine Feminine, the part that shook him the most was this. The psychic did not see you losing him. They saw him losing access to you, and now he knows. You did not lose. You leveled up. And this is where the 3 of Wands comes in. Because this card is not showing someone standing in the wreckage anymore. It is showing distance. It is showing perspective. It is showing someone looking out beyond the place that once held them captive. And Divine Feminine, that is what he was not prepared to hear. He thought the reader was going to say, she is still standing where you left her, still looking back, still waiting for the ship to return, still holding space for the same masculine who kept making promises with no movement behind them. But that is not what came through. What came through was expansion. What came through was movement. What came through was a woman who may still remember everything, but is no longer building her life around the memory. And that is different. Because he could have handled your anger. He could have handled your sadness. He could have handled you crying, questioning, reacting, posting, reaching, trying to make sense of him. But absence? Not anger, not sadness, absence. That is what shook him. Because when your energy stopped reaching, he lost the invisible thread he used to tug on. And that is the part he did not understand until that psychic said it out loud. You are not where he left you. Your spirit has moved. Your mind has moved. Your heart has started looking towards something that does not include the chaos of him. And with this 3 of Wands, I am not seeing someone running. I am seeing someone rising quietly, carefully, deliberately. You did not have to announce your healing for it to be real. You did not have to prove your detachment for spirit to recognize it. You did not have to convince him that you were done for the energy to shift. The shift already happened, and now he can feel it. That is why the panic is not imaginary. That is why he is sitting with that reading in his head, trying to replay every word, trying to find one piece of comfort inside of it. But there was no comfort there for his ego, because he expected proof of control, and what he received was proof of separation. He expected to hear that you were still energetically waiting by the door. But the psychic saw you facing the horizon, and Divine Feminine, what came through next, was even more disturbing to him than your detachment. What came through was the moon in reverse. And this is important, because upright, the moon can speak to illusion, confusion, fear, things hidden in the dark. But reversed, that is when something starts coming out. That is when the fog begins to lift. That is when the spell does not hold the same way anymore. And Divine Feminine, this is what the psychic saw underneath your detachment. They did not just see you walking away, they saw you waking up. They saw your spirit no longer standing inside the illusion that this person created around you. Because for a long time, he needed you unsure. He needed you questioning yourself. He needed you wondering if you were too emotional, too sensitive, too intense, too hard to love. He needed you trapped in that moonlight, where nothing was clear, where every feeling had to be decoded, where every silence felt like a punishment. This card reversed is saying something shifted. The confusion is losing power. The illusion is breaking. The fear is not running your choices the way it used to. And that is what disturbed him. Because he wanted the reader to say, she is lonely. He wanted the reader to say, she is still confused. He wanted the reader to say, she still does not understand why you pulled away, why you changed, why you hurt her, why you disappeared and came back like nothing happened. But that is not what they saw. They saw clarity beginning to settle in your body. They saw protection around your mind. They saw a spiritual door that used to swing open every time he touched the wound, now closing from the inside. And hear me clearly. That door did not close because you stopped caring overnight. It closed because you finally started seeing the pattern, seeing the manipulation, seeing the difference between a soul bond and an emotional trap, seeing that love should not require you to abandon yourself just to keep someone else comfortable. And Divine Feminine, that kind of clarity is protection. That kind of healing is a boundary. That kind of awakening cannot be manipulated the same way. So when Aki asked, is she still attached? The energy answered, she is becoming whole. When he asked, does she still miss me? The energy answered, she is remembering herself. When he asked, can I still reach her? The energy answered, not through the illusion. And now he is trying to figure out who helped you break free. Because he cannot accept that you chose yourself. He cannot accept that you woke up without someone pulling you out. He cannot accept that your freedom came from inside of you. And this is where the Two of Wands in reverse starts speaking. Because upright, this card can show planning, looking ahead, choosing a direction, standing between the old world and the new one. But reversed, it shows a plan interrupted. It shows control slipping. It shows someone realizing that the future they thought they could manage is no longer responding to their hand. And Divine Feminine, that is exactly what is happening with him. He is trying to figure out what happened. Who talked to you? Who encouraged you? Who gave you strength? Who is in your ear? Who is in your life? Who made you stop answering energetically? Because in his mind, there has to be someone, a new lover, a friend, a reader, a healer, a spiritual guide, a hidden support system. Someone must have helped you. Someone must have influenced you. Someone must have turned you away from him, because he does not understand the kind of woman who reaches a point where the pain itself becomes the teacher. He does not understand the kind of silence that is not punishment. It is completion. He thinks your silence is a tactic. He thinks your distance is a message. He thinks your peace is being performed for him. But it is not. And that is what makes it louder than confrontation. Because when you were explaining, he could twist your words. When you were crying, he could call you emotional. When you were reacting, he could tell himself he still had power. But now, there is nothing for him to grab. No argument, no doorway, no emotional rope hanging from your heart for him to pull. Just silence. And that silence is telling him something he does not want to hear. It is saying, you are not the center anymore. It is saying, she is not planning around you anymore. It is saying, the future she is looking at does not need your permission. And with this Two of Wands reversed, I feel his own plans starting to collapse. Because he thought he had time. He thought he could leave you sitting in uncertainty while he decided what access he wanted. He thought you would stay in that paused place, waiting, wondering, holding the door open. But the door is not open. The path is not waiting. And now he is suspicious because your healing did not ask for his approval. But Divine Feminine, what the psychic may have told him next, is what turned that suspicion into desperation. Because what came through was the Six of Wands. And Divine Feminine, this is not small. This is not a little shift. This is not just you feeling better for a moment and then falling back into the same emotional pattern. This is recognition. This is forward movement. This is you being seen in a new light after someone tried to keep you feeling invisible. And that is what terrified him, because he thought your future would still have his shadow over it. He thought even if you smiled, there would be sadness underneath it. He thought even if you moved forward, part of you would still be looking back, hoping he would finally say the words you needed. But what they saw was different. They saw you rising without the apology. They saw you healing without the explanation. They saw you stepping into a version of yourself that does not need him to admit what he did in order for you to know what happened. And hear me clearly. That kind of victory is dangerous to someone who fed off your doubt. Because if you no longer need his validation, he cannot control the story inside your mind. If you no longer need his apology, he cannot hold closure over your head. If you no longer need his return, he cannot use absence as power anymore. And with this Six of Wands, I feel the psychs saw people responding to you differently. Not because you are performing happiness, not because you are trying to prove anything, but because your energy is cleaner now, lighter, stronger, more honest. The heaviness he left in you is not sitting in your face the same way. The confusion is not bending your shoulders the same way. The grief is not speaking louder than your spirit anymore. He thought you would be broken, but what they saw was renewal. He thought you would be bitter, But what they saw was balance. He thought you would be waiting for him to choose you. But what they saw was you choosing a life where being chosen by yourself became enough. And divine feminine, that is the part that made his fear turn into desperation. Because this is not just you getting attention. This is you becoming unreachable through the old doors. Guilt does not open you the same way. Nostalgia does not soften you the same way. The trauma bond does not pull you back the same way. And now he understands that if he comes toward you, he may not be coming toward the same woman he left. So his next move may not be love, it may be damage control. And this is where the Five of Swords in reverse starts speaking. Because upright, this card can show conflict, mind games, winning at any cost, someone needing to feel like they had the final word, even if they destroyed the whole connection to get it. But reversed? Now, the game is not working the same way. Now the strategy is being exposed. Now the person who thought they won by walking away is realizing they may have only removed themselves from your life at the exact moment you were about to remember your power. And divine feminine, that is why his next move may feel confusing. Because he may not come in loud. He may not come in dramatic. He may not come in with the full truth. He may come in sideways, a casual message, a little check-in, a song, a memory, a hope you're doing well, a fake apology that says just enough to open the door, but not enough to take responsibility. And hear me clearly, that is not always love. Sometimes that is testing. Testing the lock, testing the boundary, testing whether the same words still soften you, testing whether the same wound still answers when he calls, because he does not know if the old access is truly gone. He only heard it. He only felt it. But he wants proof. So he may watch from a distance. He may ask about you through someone else. He may send a signal and pretend it was nothing. He may try to stir up nostalgia just to see if your energy turns around. Not because he has healed. Not because he has suddenly become emotionally honest. Not because he finally understands the depth of what he did, but because he is trying to see if the door is really closed. And divine feminine, this is where you do not need to be afraid, because the test is not whether he comes back. The test is not whether his name appears. The test is not whether you feel something when the memory crosses your mind. The test is whether you abandon yourself when it happens. Because feeling something does not mean you failed. Remembering does not mean you are weak. Having a moment does not mean the bond owns you. The old version of you would have tried to decode him. This version of you recognizes the pattern. The old version of you would have reached for the sword and entered the fight. This version of you puts the sword down and keeps your peace, and that is what he cannot control. Because the battle he knew how to win required your participation. And now karma is catching up in a way he did not expect. Because what comes through with the High Priestess is that the silence changed sides. And divine feminine, that is important. Because for a long time, he used silence like a weapon. He used distance like control. He used emotional withholding like a way to make you question your worth. He would pull back and let you wonder, let you overthink, let you search your own heart for something you did wrong, let you sit in that space between love and confusion, trying to understand why someone who claimed to care could make you feel so alone. But now the silence is not working for him. Now the silence is facing him. Now, he is the one sitting in the unknown, trying to read energy he no longer has permission to touch. And that is the karmic reversal. Not punishment, not revenge. Reversal. Because the same energy he kept putting you through has returned to him as a mirror. He made you wonder where you stood. Now he is wondering where he stands. He made you question what was real. Now he is questioning what he still means. He made you feel shut out of his heart. Now he is realizing he is shut out of yours. And with the High Priestess here, this is not loud. This is not messy. This is not you needing to prove that you know. This is inner knowing. Quiet knowing. The kind of knowing that does not have to argue with a lie because it already recognizes the pattern underneath it. And Divine Feminine, that is why your energy feels unreachable to him now. Because he used to be able to confuse your intuition. He used to be able to make you doubt what your body felt. He used to be able to come back with half-truths, soft words, and just enough emotion to make you question your own clarity. But the High Priestess does not chase proof. She feels the truth. She sits with the truth. She protects the truth. And she does not hand access to someone just because they are uncomfortable with the consequence of their own choices. You did not need revenge. You did not need to expose him. You did not need to make him feel what you felt. Your withdrawal of access became the consequence. Your peace became the answer. Your silence became the lesson. And what is shocking is that by paying someone to look into your energy, he may have unknowingly confirmed your spiritual promotion. And this is where the sun in reverse becomes the mirror he did not want to look into. Because upright, the sun can show clarity, warmth, exposure, everything coming into the light. But reversed, it shows someone trying to block the light because the truth is too uncomfortable to face. And Divine Feminine, the truth that came through was not just about you. It was about him. That is the part he did not expect. He paid to see whether you were still attached. But the reading exposed his attachment. He paid to see whether you were still watching. But the reading revealed that he was the one still looking. He paid to see whether you were still emotionally available. But the energy showed that he was the one still dependent on knowing where your heart was. And hear me clearly. That is why this shook him differently. Because he called it curiosity. Spirit called it attachment. He called it checking. Spirit called it obsession. He called it wanting answers. Spirit called it fear. Because why did he need to know? Why did he need confirmation? Why did he need someone else to look into your energy if he was truly done, truly unbothered, truly free? He wanted to believe you were the one still trapped in the connection. But the mirror turned around, and what he saw was himself. Still wondering, still measuring your silence, still needing proof that he mattered, still hoping that somewhere inside of you there was a place he could return to without accountability. But the sun in reverse says no. The light is not shining on the story he wanted. The light is shining on the motive, the hidden dependence, the fear behind the control, the wound behind the ego. And Divine Feminine, your healing forced him to see himself more clearly than your words ever could. Because when you were still explaining, he could make you the problem. When you were still hurting, he could call you attached. When you were still reacting, he could pretend your pain meant he still had power. But now that you are quiet, balanced, protected, and moving differently, there is nothing left for him to blame. Your peace exposed him. Your absence exposed him. Your closed door exposed the fact that he was still standing outside of it. And that is why this spiritual promotion matters, because he did not just discover that you moved on. He discovered that he did not. And that is why, right when your life starts opening, he may feel the urge to disrupt your peace. And this is where the Page of Swords comes in, because this card carries watching energy, listening energy, curious energy, but not always mature energy, not always honest energy, not always energy that knows what to do with the truth once it finds it. And Divine Feminine, this is why you may feel something stir right when your life begins to open. A dream, a memory, a random thought, a message that seems casual but feels loaded. A wave of emotion that comes out of nowhere and makes you wonder, why am I thinking about this again? But hear me clearly. That does not mean you are going backward. That does not mean you are still trapped. That does not mean the bond is stronger than your healing. Sometimes when an old connection is dissolving, it echoes. Sometimes when a wound is closing, it speaks one more time. Sometimes when your energy is leaving a place for good, the thing that once fed from that energy starts reaching. And with this Page of Swords, I feel him watching for movement, watching for signs, watching to see if your peace is real, watching to see if you are as unreachable as that psychic said you were. He may not even fully understand why he feels pulled to check. He may tell himself it is curiosity. He may tell himself it is nothing. He may tell himself he just wants to know how you are doing. But underneath that, there is a fear that your life is opening without him in it. And narcissistic energy does not always resurface because it has changed. Sometimes it resurfaces because it senses that you have. It senses the breakthrough. It senses the distance. It senses that the door is no longer cracked open through pain, longing, guilt, or unfinished conversation. So do not mistake the echo for the invitation. Do not mistake the memory for the message. Do not mistake the emotional wave for a command to return. This is not about proving you feel nothing. This is about knowing that what you feel does not have to control what you choose. The old version of you might have chased the meaning. This version of you lets the meaning reveal itself without abandoning your peace. The old version of you might have answered just to calm the ache. This version of you asks, will this cost me myself? And Divine Feminine, that is where the final truth begins. Because the real ending is not about whether he comes back. It is about who you become when he no longer matters. And this is where the 10 of Coins in reverse tells the truth. Because upright, this card can speak to legacy, stability, a life built, a table where there is safety, consistencies, and something real to return to. But reversed, it shows the structure was not as solid as someone wanted it to look. It shows a foundation that could not hold you because it was built around control, not love. And Divine Feminine, this is the final piece. He panicked because the psychic did not see you destroying the connection. They saw you outgrowing the version of yourself that kept trying to make a broken foundation feel like home. They saw that the dream he thought he could use against you was changing. The future you once imagined with him, the home, the stability, the promise, the spiritual contract, the bond, all of it had to pass through the mirror. And when it did, you saw what was real. And you saw what was only potential. That is why this is not bitter. This is not revenge. This is not you needing him to suffer so you can feel free. No, This is you understanding that some people lose access because they kept mistaking access for ownership. He thought the bond meant he could return whenever he wanted. But the door closed. He thought the history meant you would always make room. But your self-respect stood in the doorway. He thought the Two of Cups meant you belonged to him. But the mirror showed something deeper. You belonged to yourself first. And that is why you won. Not because you beat him at his own game. Not because you made him jealous. Not because you forced him to see your worth. You won because you stopped abandoning yourself for someone who only valued your presence when he felt your absence. You won because your silence is no longer a plea. It is peace. You won because your balance is no longer dependent on his mood, his message, his apology, or his return. And he knows it. That is why he is panicking. Because the psychic did not see a woman still waiting at the ruins. They saw a woman walking away with her spirit intact. They saw the energetic doorway closed. They saw the contract changing. They saw access denied. And Divine Feminine, let this settle in your heart. You did not lose the connection. You found the woman who was buried underneath it, and that is the victory he can feel but cannot control. You did not lose. You returned to yourself.